As I'm sure you know from the past, the moment we go live, I have to do my all-important sharing. So just give me a moment here as I share this live video. We just went live. As we are going to share our video all about the upcoming holiday, which starts on Friday night. Okay, one share is down. And let's see, share one more. You know, as I get on Facebook here to share my video, I see all the competition I have. But it's no worries. We will do this even for one. All right, let's click share now. See if it worked. Okay, great. All right. It's great to see you here for another one of these classes. Again, these classes are really designed not for the, they're not designed for the highly advanced, although even someone who's highly advanced will gain a lot from these classes. These classes are otherwise known as, they're called Make It Meaningful. So that's what we call them, Make It Meaningful, Simchat Torah. That's what today's one is about. It's all about how to make the upcoming holiday meaningful. So we delve into understanding the meaning behind the holiday, and then eventually we will get to the actual things we do in the holiday, the actual actions and customs and whatnot. But we're going to start with the meaning of the holiday. And many people are not familiar with this upcoming holiday. Some people are familiar with the Simchat Torah because they know about the dancing. But the actual real original biblical holiday is the holiday of what's known as Shmini Atzeret. Shmini, which means the 8th day, and Atzeret means to hold back. So we'll delve into what exactly is Shmini Atzeret, what is Simchat Torah, what do we do on it, and what are the deep meanings. And there's a lot of deep, wonderful meaning. It's a very strange holiday. You know, we take out the Torah book and we dance around in circles. Shmini Atzeret technically doesn't have anything written about in the Torah. It doesn't say why we celebrate. It just says the 8th day, and you gotta not work. And on top of that, it's not even the 8th day. It's actually a separate holiday. It's not part of Sukkot. So there's a lot of interesting things about it. But regardless, let's just give you a quick joke. I don't know if it's a little bit morbid or not, either way. So the joke goes like this. So in 1996, Larry LaPraise, the author of the song The Hokey Pokey, passed away. They planned this big funeral, and all was going well until it was time to put him in the casket. And first they put the left leg in, and that's when pandemonium broke out. All right, so that's my joke for today. Well, I spoke of that, but that's the joke for today. It's connected to Simchat Torah because we do a lot of dancing. You know, you put your left leg in, your left leg out. You do the Simchat Torah and you dance all about. So it's a great holiday. So let's delve right into it. So let's start off with the holiday of Shmini Atzeret. And in case you don't know, yes, another holiday. We just had Rosh Hashanah. We just had Yom Kippur. We just had Sukkot, and we've got another holiday for you. Lucky for you this year, the holidays all fall out on the weekends, but we're not always so lucky. So what is this holiday that we're celebrating? So again, we started the holiday Sukkot, and by now you all should have gotten your calendars. We started the holiday Sukkot October 2nd. I'll just get looking at my calendar here. October 2nd in the evening. And the holiday Sukkot ends on Friday. Friday the 9th is the last day of Sukkot. It's also known as the last day of judgment. I believe we spoke about it last time. There are different customs to be done on the 7th day of Sukkot because it's the last day of judgment. There's actually a custom dating back from the times of the prophets to take 5 willow branches and bang them on the ground in what's called sweetening the severities, which we spoke about in our last class. So Friday night, technically you would think we're all done, but no, Friday night, we begin another holiday, which importantly has a Yizkor in it too, because Yizkor is said always at the end of every holiday of the 3 festivals and Yom Kippur. So from Friday night until Sunday night, we have the holiday of Shmini Atzeret Simchat Torah. So what is this holiday all about? So Shmini Atzeret literally means a restriction of the 8th day. So literally all the Torah writes is on the 8th day, meaning 7 days of Sukkot, and on the 8th day, I want you to have another holiday. In other words, Within Sukkot, the first day, and in the Diaspora, the second day also is super holiday. That's a day when we don't drive and we don't flip lights and all those things, just like Shabbat. But the rest of the days are intermediate days where you can work if you need to. However, the 8th day, again, is Atzeret, restriction. Everything has to stop, no working. So what is the meaning behind this holiday? So a deeper meaning behind this holiday is like this. In the temple times, the Jewish people would pray in the temple for all the nations of the world. It says that if you count the offerings that were brought on the holiday Sukkot, they brought 70 bullock offerings, which corresponds to the 70 nations. Now, when we say in general, by the way, that there are 70 nations, if you look in the Bible, there were, so to speak, 70 nations that came out of Noah. Noah is obviously the progenitor of all mankind. 70 nations came out of Noah. And therefore, we celebrate on this day. 1 second. So I was trying to get in. Just 1 second. Okay. So therefore, on this day we go with the 70. So there are 70 nations that came out of Noah, besides for the Jewish people. And so historically, we say there are 70 nations besides for the Jewish people. Over the holiday Sukkot, we pray for all of them. So it's, so to speak, a global holiday. It's so global to the point where the Talmud says, if the nations of the world realized how much the Holy Temple meant for them, they would never destroy it. But then on the 8th day, suddenly we go from bringing 10 or 9 or 8 bullocks a day to bringing 1. And that's because Shmini Atzeret celebrates the wonderful, wonderful connection between the Jewish people and God. And let me just share with you a screen over here. Let me share with you. Let's share it with you. Okay. Hopefully you can see it. Over here, this is what Rashi brings out. Oh, let me move this over here. This is what Rashi brings out. Rashi says, this is like children taking leave of their father, and their father says, it is difficult for me to part with you for my sake. Postpone your departure and remain with me for one other day. So in other words, what it's saying is that after all these great holidays that God has had with us, God is saying, I don't want to, we spend so many holidays together. I don't want to leave you again. So, so for 7 days, we were, so to speak, celebrating with everybody. Now we are celebrating only us and God. So that is at one simple level. But at a deeper level, Shmini Atzeret is more than just God saying, well, we have all these holidays, I want to spend an extra day with you. But actually, it's the final day of the holiday season, which means it has to do something very important. And that is that it has to take all of the power of the high holiday season and bring it down into our practical life. Because as we finish this holiday, this is going to be, so to speak, the last holiday, and it's supposed to carry us on throughout the rest of the year. The high holidays all coming all at once, one after another, is because there's something that the Torah is trying to bring us, which is what I've spoken about in my last couple of classes. So to get a little more detailed, there's a lot of ways of understanding it, but one interesting way of understanding it is if you look at Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is the days in which we feel God. In fact, we feel God so much that we barely feel ourselves. On Rosh Hashanah, we crown God as King. Yom Kippur, it's even more so that we feel the oneness with God, but within feeling a oneness with God, you can feel a oneness in a way that you almost don't feel yourself. And Yom Kippur really is the epitome of that, where even Rosh Hashanah, where we say we have nothing and you are our King, we're totally dependent and reliant upon you. And Yom Kippur, surely where we fast and we're not ourselves, is a day when we are fully relying on God. Our oneness with God is expressive in almost to the point of negating ourselves. And that is actually similar, so to speak, to the soul, our souls before they came to this earth. Our soul, it says, is a part of God. Before it came to this earth, it was one with God. The soul was one with God. And so that's kind of what Yom Kippur is. We get back to that feeling again, that oneness with God, that wholesome oneness with God that we had before we came down to this earth. However, there's a general question, which is, if we were created with a purpose, what is that purpose? And one of the answers is, well, God sent us down to this earth, so the soul descends. So in heaven, it was having a good time, one with God. It comes down to this earth. Why did it come down to this earth? So that it can experience an elevation. It can be elevated. It can get higher than where it was before. And the question is asked, if the soul in heaven was one with God, you can't get higher than that. So what does it mean? The soul is going to come down to this earth to do work so that it can get even higher than where it was before. How can it get any higher than where how can it get any higher than where it was before? It was one with God. And one of the answers is like this. It says that the soul, although it was one with God, it did not feel itself. The trick that we do by coming to this earth is to feel as a distinct identity and yet be one with God. To be able to live in this earth and feel the oneness of God. And that is what Simchat Torah is about. And that is the elevation that our souls are supposed to have, and that is what carries us through the year. In other words, Yom Kippur, we feel how we were before we were born, where we totally negate ourselves. But that's not the long-term solution. That's not long-term what we try and do for the whole year. For the whole year, what we try and do is we try to live within this world, feel us as our distinct beings, but yet feel one with God at the same time. And that is what Simchat Torah is about. Simchat Torah is not a day where we fast. It's a day where we eat and are merry and feast and dance and are joyous. And so Simchat Torah, as I said, is really taking all the meaning of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, feeling that oneness of God, feeling our soul, which is one with God, and bringing it down into this earth. It started in Sukkot. Sukkot, we had it at every moment as a mitzvah, but even more so in Simchat Torah, it's almost like Simchat Torah is the joyful opposite of Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur, you feel your soul in a very solemn way, and Simchat Torah, you feel your soul in a very joyous way. They're both high energy moments, but very, very different ways. And the first one has to come first. You have to first start with Yom Kippur to be inspired to do Simchat Torah. So that is a deeper explanation behind this holiday of Shmini Atzeret Simchat Torah. When God says, I need another day to spend with you, it's not just on a simple level, God, needs another day with us. It's more deep than that, that God wants us to he wants us to feel him even on a day like Simchat Torah. He wants us to take all the messages of the holiday season and carry it out through the rest of the year. Okay, so now, the next thing we are doing is, all right, now let me just say a couple practical things. So that is a little bit of the meaning behind Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah, which I haven't really explained why it's 2 days, but I'll get to that in a moment. But first, let me point out that even though it's called Shmini Atzeret, the 8th day, it's actually not the 8th day. It's truly another day. It's truly a separate holiday. And in fact, we see that because when we say our prayers, we don't anymore say at Yom Chag HaSukkot Hazeh. We don't call it Chag HaSukkot in our prayers. We say Yom Shmini Atzeret, is that we call it Shmini Atzeret. In addition, we say a new Shehachianu. The Shehachianu prayer is said whenever there's a mitzvah or a holiday that comes around once a year. And so the fact that we say a new Shehachianu on Shmini Atzeret tells us that it's an entirely new holiday. But now let me get down to a little bit of technicality, how this holiday is celebrated. So in the diaspora, I told you we have 2 days. When I say diaspora, I mean outside of Israel, we have 2 days. We have Shmini Atzeret, which is Friday night Shabbat, and we have Simchat Torah, which is Saturday night and Sunday. So we celebrate in the diaspora 1 day as Shmini Atzeret and 1 day as Simchat Torah. Why are we doing a 2-day holiday? So this goes back to the calendar. We've spoken about the calendar many, many times, and I'm sure you've heard about the calendar. There's one reason we could say why there's 2 days. They say the old joke, right? There's 3 types of people, those that know how to count and those that don't know how to count. Anyways, it's not funny. So there's a story of, so what's the story with the Jewish calendar? The story with the Jewish calendar is that the Jewish calendar is I don't want to say a modern invention, but it's originally Jewish holidays were established by the High Court. They were established by the Sanhedrin, as it's called, the Jewish High Court. And however, sorry, not Jewish holidays, the first of the month. So the English calendar, we have a calendar, we know what day each month is. The Jewish calendar, originally the first day of the month was decided by when you see the moon. Now, you had to actually have witnesses see the moon and come to the High Court and say they saw the moon. And then the High Court would say, today is Rosh Chodesh. Now, you have to know what day is the first day of the month in order to know what day is the holiday. Because if the holiday is the 15th day of the month, you need to know when the first day of the holiday was. So they would send out messengers to all the lands telling them the first day of the month was this day. However, you had to live within distance of the messengers in order to know what day the first day of the holiday was. If you lived too far out of that radius, then you would celebrate a 2-day holiday. What is considered too far out of Jerusalem? It's a 10-day journey. Why a 10-day journey? Because from Rosh Hashanah until Sukkot is 15 days, right? Sukkot is the 15th day. However, you have to take out 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, 1 day of Yom Kippur, and possible of 2 Shabboses that can fall out. There's also, not only that, there's a half a day of the day before Sukkot and a half a day the day they consecrated it. Regardless, you had to live within a 10-day journey, of Jerusalem. If you lived outside of the 10-day journey of Jerusalem, they said you should always celebrate 2 days of the holiday because you don't know what is the actual first day of the holiday. So seemingly what it sounds like is that in the diaspora and places outside of this 10-day journey of Jerusalem, we keep 2 days just because from a technicality, we live too far to know the exact date of the beginning of the year. But there's actually, if we go in the deeper dimension of it, there's actually a beautiful message here. So again, what I'm saying is that every Jewish holiday in the diaspora we celebrate is 2 because we live too far from Jerusalem to know what day was the first of the month. And it sounds like it's just a technicality, like unfortunately we live too far, so that's what we have to do. But there is a deeper message in it. Deeper message is, there's a couple layers. But the first deeper layer is that Israel is a holy land. And therefore, if you're in the Holy Land, your soul can be nourished very quickly. Your soul can feel the spirituality much easier in the Holy Land. Therefore, they only need to celebrate holidays for 1 day. But in the diaspora, outside of Israel, we need 2 days in order to feel that great level of spirituality. So this is just showing you how everything that's a technicality in Jewish law also has a deeper meaning behind it. But I'm going to take it even deeper than that. Judaism views every challenge as also an opportunity. So although we're saying that the diaspora is more mundane and therefore it takes us longer to feel the spirituality of the holiday, at the same time there's a benefit. What's the benefit? Israel is already holy. We cannot make Israel any holier than it is. We can honor and respect the holiness of the land of Israel, but you cannot make Israel holier than it is. However, the diaspora is not holy. We have the ability to elevate anywhere that's outside of the land of Israel. And that is expressed in the fact that holidays, we celebrate 2 days. How is that expressive of that? Well, the first day of a holiday is actually a holiday. Nothing we could do about it. But the second day of the holiday is something that really technically should have been a regular day, but we are making it holiday living in the diaspora. So for example, this coming Sunday, according to strict biblical law, would have been 1 day. Sorry, the holiday would have been just Shabbat, not Sunday. Sunday would have been a day off, would have been after holiday. But we in the diaspora are taking a regular day and transforming it into something powerful, into the holiday of Simchas Torah. And that is indicative of what we do here outside of the land of Israel, is we are taking the mundane and elevating it and lifting it up and transforming it. So although living outside the land of Israel, for us to feel spirituality, it is a little bit more difficult. And that's why from our personal being, we need a 2-day holiday. But there's also a benefit that we have the ability with this 2-day holiday to elevate the mundane, both the mundane of the world around us and the mundane of time. We can always elevate ourselves, and we can elevate time itself. And so that is also kind of a benefit and a deeper meaning of celebrating the 2-day holiday. Just one second. Let me, okay. So that being said, so what do we do on this second day? So I said there's 2 days. One day is Shmini Atzeret, that 8th day where God says, I want you to stay with me. And then there's another day which is called Simchat Torah. So what is Simchat Torah? Simchat Torah literally means the joy of the Torah. What's so joyous about this day? It's joyous because we finished reading the Torah. So the Torah is split up into 53 or 54 Torah portions. Sorry. But regardless, we make sure we finish the Torah reading once a year. There were in certain areas many, many years ago, Maimonides mentions it, that they used to do a 3-year cycle. But most common in most areas has always been the 1-year cycle. So we always have a cycle of the Torah that we finish every year. So we start with Genesis, in the beginning, and we go all the way to the end. On the holiday of Simchat Torah, we finish reading the Torah. Now in Israel, they'll finish it on Shmini Atzeret. So in Israel, they'll finish it on Saturday, and we are going to finish it on Sunday. Now, and that's why it's a very joyous day, because in general, in Judaism, whenever you finish something that takes a long time, it's joyous, right? Someone who finishes a whole tractate of the Talmud will make a celebration. It's a joyous day when you're able to finish something very long. Someone who finishes medical school, you make a whole celebration, right? So that's a similar idea over here. The question, though, and again, because everything that we're studying today, we want to get a little bit of a deeper insight. So I know I'm going to touch on a lot of topics, but I want you to get a little bit of deeper insight in everything. Just as we spoke a little bit of a deeper insight of what it means in the 8th day and how it can draw down everything that comes from Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And just as we spoke a little bit more of the deeper meaning of the 2 days of the Diaspora, we are also going to speak a little bit of the deeper meaning of why do we finish the Torah on this day? Because seemingly the date we should finish the Torah on 2 other dates. We should either finish reading the Torah on Rosh Hashanah, beginning of the year. Beginning of the year would make sense. That's when you finish the Torah. Or we should finish the Torah on the holiday of Shavuot, the day the Torah was given. Why are we completing the reading of the Torah now? So you might say, well, we're busy on Rosh Hashanah, so it's a little too busy, so they pushed it off. That's a little bit of an excuse, because as I'm sure you know, Judaism doesn't necessarily have much mercy on us sometimes. Look at how long the holiday prayers on Yom Kippur are, you know? So an interesting explanation that's given is we know that on Rosh Hashanah, God gave us the Torah. After that, God gave us the first set of tablets. But the first set of tablets, Moshe shattered them because the Jewish people sinned. When were the second tablets given to us? Finally, they were given to us on the holiday of Yom Kippur. And since these are the tablets that endured, the first tablets are broken, these are the tablets that stayed. So we want to celebrate the completion near that point in time. Now, we cannot complete the celebration on Yom Kippur because you can't eat on Yom Kippur. It's not a great time. So therefore, we do it at the end of the next holiday. But a deeper meaning behind this, or taking this a little bit further, what is significant in the fact that the first tablets are broken? So who cares the first tablets are broken, but they got the Torah already? And the answer is that, yes, they got the first tablets, but the fact that they were broken shows that we are not sure of the Jewish people's commitment and if they would keep the Torah. Only once they repented and they got the second tablets, that showed that keeping Judaism is not a passing choice. It shows that it's something that the Jewish people were going to hold on to, something that's going to endure. And that is why after the second tablets is when we establish the beginning of reading the Torah, when we know that our commitment and connection to the Torah is something that's enduring. Even if we sin, and inevitably some of us do. I know none of you here today sin ever, but some of us do sin occasionally. But even if we sin, we have the precedent that just as the second tablets were brought to us by repentance, we know that ultimately we will repent. Now, I kind of glossed over a question, which I will address now and will answer, because again, it will give us a deeper insight. So I explained why the rereading of the Torah has to start after Yom Kippur. And I said because that's when the second tablets were given, and that shows that there's endurance. But why do we wait all the way till the end of the holiday of Sukkot? Why don't we immediately read it on the Shabbat after Yom Kippur? And one answer is, of course, because there's not always a Shabbat that doesn't fall out on Sukkot. But a deeper meaning is that just as we said a moment ago, that that the second tablet showed on our deeper connection with the Torah, we want to show that we are deeply connected to the Torah before we start reading it, and that happens on Sukkot. So again, although Yom Kippur shows our bond to God, because we get up there and we repent to God and we say we're going to do good deeds, but we only actually start doing good deeds once the holiday of Sukkot comes around. Once every single moment is a mitzvah, every single moment expresses how we make the mundane holy, right? When you sit in the sukkah, everything you do in the sukkah is a mitzvah, right? How often is it you get to eat a cookie and it's a mitzvah? How often is it that you just get to talk with your friends and it's a mitzvah? If you do it in the sukkah, it's a mitzvah. And so therefore, we want to make sure that when we start to read the Torah, we are going to take the message of the Torah not just as some spiritual idea that's out there, but it's connected deeply into our day-to-day lives. And so that is why we want to begin the reading of the Torah, not just after Yom Kippur, which signifies our deep commitment to the Torah, but after the holiday of Sukkot, which signifies our deep commitment to the Torah's commandments and bringing it into our day-to-day life. Okay. Any questions? Feel free to comment or post either on Zoom or Facebook. Put it in the comments or the chat, and I will try to get to them. Okay. We'll now get into a little bit of the practical, a little bit of what we actually do on the holiday of Sukkot and Simchat Torah. So let me just pull up a screen over here. Just give me a moment. Okay. One more moment here. Okay. So the holiday of Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah is very similar to the other holidays in the fact that it begins the same as all the others, and that is, of course, it begins with candle lighting. So let's just review a little bit of candle lighting. Let me just share my screen over here for a second. Let's share. Okay. So candle lighting, as usual, should be done 8 minutes before sunset. Sorry, 18 minutes before sunset. Which this year amounts to 6:48 p.m. 6:48 p.m. you have to light the candles. It's very important. Although on a regular holiday, you're allowed to light a candle from a pre-existing flame, on Shabbat, you're not allowed to. And therefore, you have to make sure you light your candles. Don't light them too late. If you light it past 7:07, I believe it's way too late. So make sure you light your candles. If you're if you're married, then your wife will do it, and if you're not married and you're a man, you're doing it yourself. That's okay. There are a couple blessings that we say, and why am I? Okay, I can stop sharing the screen. So obviously, there's a blessing we say for Yom Tov, and there's also a blessing we say for the holiday for the Shachianu. Again, because it's a new holiday. So we will say the Shachianu prayer again when you light the candles. If you say the Shachianu when you light the candles, you don't say the Shachianu when you make the Kiddush. Someone asks over here in the chat, why restrict work for the entire holiday time? So you're asking, why are we restricting work on the 2 days of Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah? Is that the question? Let me know in the comments. We don't restrict work for the whole Sukkot, but Shmini Atzeret, Simchat Torah, we do restrict work. But if that's the question, why are we restricting work for the 2 days of the holiday? Because obviously God deems that's the effective way for us to connect with the holiday. Holidays, Shabbat, are days of recharging, days of reconnecting to the divine. And we as human beings are terrible multitaskers. We're just bad at multitasking. We can't do it. You can't text and drive, and you can't work and celebrate the holiday. It just doesn't work. And especially a holiday like this, which has, it's recharging and refreshing your batteries to continue and bring it to the rest of the year. You need to step back from your work. We've spoken about this when we spoke about Shabbat. Shabbat, of course, obviously has that same idea, where it says on the one hand, all the days lead up to Shabbat, and at the same time, Shabbat leads up to the rest of the week. So what that means is that it's kind of this dichotomy. Shabbat is the day where we're supposed to feel very spiritual, but ultimately, during the week, we have to, God wants us to elevate the mundane. This is something we've been talking about now. So although we rest on the holidays, but the ultimate goal is not for us to celebrate holiday every day. We have to elevate the mundane. You mentioned here, you thought we don't work throughout the whole Sukkot. Sukkot, the rest of Sukkot, is what's known as Chol HaMoed, which means Chol, which means mundane, and Moed means holiday. So it's kind of a mixture. We celebrate, but you can do work if it's needed. Okay. So back to the holiday. So nice to see you, Estelle. So on Friday night this year, we light the candles. If you have loved ones, you're going to light the Yizkor candle also, 24-hour candle. That is because Yizkor is said on Shabbat. Okay, just one second here. Okay. The service begins with Kabbalat Shabbat on Friday night. So again, you light your candles, you light your Yizkor candles, and the service on Friday night begins with the Kabbalat Shabbat. And most people know the beginning of Kabbalat Shabbat, the prayers that bring in Shabbat, as L'chu Neranena, where you did Nefesh. But on the Friday night that falls out on a holiday, we skip and we do an abridged version of that. That's because we don't want the Shabbat to take too much away from the holiday. Let me pull up over here. If you want to, by the way, if you want to see kind of what I'm talking about in the prayers, I'm going to pull it up over here. You can also go on a website if you ever want to see the Chabad prayer book. You can go to HebrewBooks.org-16091. HebrewBooks.org-16091. There you can read the holiday prayer book. Well, not the holiday prayer book. There you can read the Chabad prayer book online, always. That's the prayer book that we use in the synagogue. Of course, if anybody needs to borrow one, we definitely can lend it to you. So just so you have an idea of what I'm talking about, I'm just going to pull up over here a Friday night prayer. Let me share my screen. Hopefully that's what you see. Hopefully you see my screen. Okay. So let's take a look over here at a Shabbat prayer. 1 second. I'm all the way in Shabbat. Okay. Let's see, Friday night. We should make it easier to get to different pages. Oh, here it is. Okay. So usually a Friday night starts with L'chu Neranena. That is the song, Come Let Us Sing to the Lord. But instead, we start with the Mizmor LeDavid song. Mizmor LeDavid, that one, a song by David over here. And then we continue with Lecha Dodi. Now, when you pray your prayers on Friday night this year, when you get to the Amidah for the holiday of Shmini Atzeret, you have to go to the festival Amida. So in the prayer book, if you're using a Chabad, it'll be page 330. If you're using an art scroll, 331. If you're using an art scroll, it'll be page 660. So that will bring you to the right place where you can read the festival Amidah. When you pray the festival prayer, make sure you mention the correct phrases both for Shmini Atzeret and for Shabbat. And what will be different this year, once we're done with all of that, is that we're going to do what's called the Hakafot. So again, we're going to do the Hakafot. So what are the Hakafot? The Hakafot are, of course, the main exciting part of Simchat Torah. So in Simchat Torah, what is the main action that we do that gets everybody excited? That is where we circle the bima. We go round and round the bima. It's called Hakafot. Hakafah in Hebrew means to circle. Hakafah, to go in a circle. So Hakafot means when we go in circles. So on the last day, on Simchat Torah, when we celebrate the Torah, we go round and round in circles around the bima, dancing with joy of the Torah. What's interesting is that we celebrate the Torah not by studying it, but we celebrate the Torah by dancing with it. So it's very interesting. The holiday of Shavuot, where we celebrate the actual giving of the Torah, we celebrate with study. However, the holiday of Simchat Torah, where we've actually studied it and learned it, and now starting again, we actually celebrate it by keeping it closed and dancing with it for the most part. And why is that? Because we want to show that although we have studied the Torah, our bond with the Torah transcends our scholarship. Because truthfully, the Torah is not just some man's wisdom, deep wisdom. It's godly wisdom. It's godly stuff. It's divine wisdom. And as much as we can grasp with our little minds in the Torah, there's much more to it. And so by keeping it closed, we are showing that we are all connected to the Torah, from the greatest of scholars to the most simple person, because even the greatest of scholars is not trying to be smart. They're trying to just connect to God. And we can all connect to God in the Torah, whether we become the wisest of scholars or the simplest of people. And so that's the message we're trying to get. As we complete the Torah, when we restart, we want to make sure our focus is not just on, how wise we are, but realize how little we actually know. You know, it's interesting. They say in the books of the Talmud, if you open up any Talmud tractate, it always starts on page B, Daf Beis. It never starts on page A, page 1. Why not? It says the message is, as much as you know, there's still something you don't know. You don't know everything. You don't know page 1. There's still a part that you don't know. So as much as the Torah as we've studied, we have to realize there's so much more that we don't know. Not to get haughty, not to misuse our understanding of the Torah, and to realize that the Torah, we're lucky the parts that we understand, and the parts that we understand is our special way of connecting with God. So this celebration of completing the Torah actually in Israel happens on Shmini Atzeret, which is Shabbat, the 8th day. And in America, we do it on the 9th day. However, Chabad custom is, even though we will only complete celebrating the completion of the Torah on the 9th day, in solidarity with our brethren in Israel, also the first night, the 8th day, or the 8th evening, Friday night, we also do quick hakafot. We do some dancing. There are other customs, not just Chabad, to do it as well. But regardless, so the hakafot, the circling, the bima, is mostly in a diaspora on the 9th night, which is Saturday night this year. In Israel, it's the 8th night. What's interesting is also in Israel, even though they celebrate their Torah, they complete the Torah on the 8th day, they also celebrate, once the holiday's over, the same time that we do. This is actually a custom from the Arizal, the Arizal, which the famous Kabbalist, he established that we should celebrate together with our brethren all over the world. And till today in Israel, after the holidays of Shmini Atzeret is over, so on this year on Saturday night, they would have Simchat Torah with the Torah scrolls and music, because it's not the holiday anymore for them. And so it's interesting. We celebrate their celebration, and they celebrate our celebration. So it's kind of pretty cool. it became very popular in Israel to celebrate the second night during the Holocaust. That's actually when it became more popular. And the reason was the rabbis felt that we have to be the hands and the feet of the Jewish people who unfortunately are not allowed to celebrate this holiday because of the persecution. So that's just a little bit of the history on how it began. Before the Hakafot, the circling happens, the Torah, there are many, many verses that are said. You will be able to find it in your prayer book. If you just search in your prayer book for Simchat Torah, you'll find different verses. One of them, that's like one of them. There's a lot of them. 17 verses that are recited responsively. And then when those 17 verses are done, and by the way, if you're doing this at home, you can say those 17 verses too. After those 17 verses are done, then there are the 7 circuits in which the Torah scrolls are carried. There's a leader, there are lines that are said, and we circle the bima 7 times at least, and there's lots of dancing and laughter and joy. If you're going to be doing the prayers at home, you can pick up a chumash, pick up the 5 books of Moshe, and pick it up, say the prayers, dance with it. They tell the story of the Rebbe's father, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Schneerson, who was put into exile in the Soviet Union for the crime of spreading Judaism. And one of the years he was stuck in a distant village in Kazakhstan. You probably don't even know where it is. And while he was there, there was no Jewish community there at all, and he barely had a room to live in. But yet, his wife writes in the diary that he took a book of the Tanya, which is the only holy book he had there, and he held it with his hand, and he closed his eyes, and he celebrated Simchat Torah there in his room. There wasn't even enough room to go around in circles. But he celebrated. And this year, although the difficulties that are present, many people will not be in shul. And even if you come to shul, it's not going to be like a regular year, you know. We're not going to be dancing and breathing all over each other like a regular year. It's difficult, but we have to have that Jewish spirit and transcend and be able to celebrate no matter the circumstances. And we are a resilient people. And the Torah calls us a stiff-necked nation. And we are a stiff-necked nation, both for the bad and for the good. And so this is your Simchat Torah. Wherever you are, make sure you celebrate. Feel your connection to the Torah. Feel your connection to God. Feel how you're going to take this Torah and connect to the godly wisdom within it throughout your year, throughout the mundane day-to-day of your life. Try to create your Simchat Torah moment wherever you are. All right. So getting back to a little bit of the practical. We are still talking about Friday night. So since some people have the custom doing the Hakafot on Friday night. So once the Hakafot are done, then there's a Kiddush that is to be said. In the Kiddush, we mention only about, in the Kiddush, we mention about Shmini Atzeret and Sukkot, and we have the Challah. This meal will be the first meal where we don't use honey. Over the high holiday season, all the way through the last day of Sukkot, we dip our challah in honey. The last day you dip the challah in honey is going to be on Friday. Friday, actually, you're supposed to have a festive meal. It's called Hoshana Rabbah, the Great Hoshana. It's the last day of Sukkot. In fact, actually, interestingly enough, the Jewish calendar is made in such a way that the Hoshana Rabbah, the seventh day of Sukkot, will never fall out on Shabbat, just so we can celebrate it. So anyways, this shows you how important it is. So on the 7th day of Sukkot, make sure you have a meal in your sukkah, or if you don't have a sukkah, wherever, and dip your challah and honey, but that will be the last time. Comes Friday night, no more challah and honey, but make sure you have a beautiful festive meal. Okay. The morning services of Shemini Atzeret are very, very similar to a regular holiday. We have the holiday, you read the prayers that are similar to Shabbat, well, you read pretty much Shabbat prayers, except when it comes to the Amidah, the silent devotional prayer. You say the holiday prayer. We also say the Hallel, the verses of praise. There's a special Torah reading that's to be said. And also, most importantly, for many people, on Shemini Atzeret, you will say the Yizkor prayer. The Yizkor prayer is to be said on Shemini Atzeret. If you don't have the Yizkor book, you can borrow it from us. You can find the basic Yizkor prayer in almost any prayer book, but if you want the expanded version that we have, just let me know and we can get it to you. It's not a big deal. The Musaf prayer, of course, is a holiday Musaf prayer. If you're in the synagogue, the Kohanim, the priests, will bless us. And it says, even if you can't make it to synagogue, it says the priests are blessing everyone who is not able to make it to the synagogue. So if you would have liked to come to synagogue, but you're not able to, the priests are still blessing you. So feel their blessing on the days of the holidays. All right, at nightfall, which is Saturday night, which, by the way, if you're coming to synagogue, we're going to have an outdoor meal. I believe it's 6:30 is mincha, 6:45 we're going to have an outdoor deli meal, pre-made sandwiches outside on Saturday night, 6:45. And after the Marav services on Saturday night, then comes the real hakafot. This is the real dancing with the Torah. So whatever I told you about dancing the hakafot, this is the night to do it. Saturday night, dance till your shoes get worn out. There's a story, I forget where it's told, maybe it was the Baal Shem Tov said, but one time the Satan, the accusing angel, wanted to bring some negative news against the Jews. That rhymes. And the angel Michael came running with the shoes, worn out shoes. And he says, these are the worn out shoes that the Jews wore out during the holiday of Simchat Torah. And the merit of these shoes, the Jews should be saved. And that is indeed what happened. So that just shows you the importance of dancing in Simchat Torah. So get some good dancing shoes that you won't hurt yourself in, and dance away on the holiday of Simchat Torah. Now, Sunday, the daytime of Simchat Torah, it's something that a lot of people miss. A lot of people come for the nighttime. It's a lot of fun, a lot of dancing, not so much prayers, more food. But actually, the daytime is almost as long of a service as Rosh Hashanah, but it's more joyous. When we pray the daytime prayers on Rosh Hashanah, on the Simchat Torah, which is Sunday, we start off like regular holiday prayers, but after the first Amidah, before the reading of the Torah, we already make a Kiddush so that we can say L'chaim, because already during the daytime, we're going to do Hakafot again. So again, you did dancing at night, and we're doing dancing again. So for those who are keeping track, some people do dancing Friday night, but definitely want you to do dancing Saturday night and on Sunday to celebrate the Torah. After some dancing, then we start to read the Torah. And what's unique about the reading of the Torah and Simchat Torah is that everybody gets an aliyah. We call everybody up to the Torah, so it can take a little bit of while. What are we reading? We are actually reading the last Torah portion in the Torah. We don't finish it, but we keep reading the last section of it over and over until everybody gets an aliyah. And then we call up all the little boys. We call all the little boys to the Torah. We spread a talis over them, and we call them up to the Torah to celebrate the holiday of Simchat Torah. It's the only time of year, of course, that they're called up to the Torah. And then we call up a person which is called Chatan Torah, the groom of the Torah. And they are called up for the last reading, the reading of the end of the Torah, where we read the final blessings that Moses gives, and the passing of Moses, and how Joshua took over. And after we're done reading that, then we start again from the beginning, because in Judaism we never end, we don't finish. There's always more to do. And so the moment we finished one section of Torah, we start from the beginning of Genesis, and we call up someone which is called Chatan Bereshit, the one who's married to Bereshis, and that person is called up and we begin the Torah again. And we read the reading of the 6 days of creation. It's also a very interesting responsive reading in which we read and we mention the different sections, different people. Once we're done that reading, then we have another reading where we read about the offerings that were brought on that day. And then finally, we have a Musaf prayer. And after the Musaf prayer, if we're lucky and it's still late and it's early enough, we can daven mincha. But either way, the Musaf prayer is the general holiday Musaf prayer. When the Torah is finished, we say Chazak, Chazak, Vinit Chazek. Strong, strong, be strong. A simple reason why we say that line, Chazak, Chazak, Vinit Chazek, be strong, is we want to give ourselves the strength that although we're finishing the Torah, we're going to continue and complete it again. But an even deeper way is, this is an interesting one. It says that when you study the Torah, sometimes it takes time till you can actually understand what you've learned. And so each time you get to peel another layer of the onion, you get to go deeper than where you did last time. And so when we say strong, strong, be strong, what we're saying is study again, not just because you haven't finished learning, there's more to learn, but what you learned last time, if you now learn again, you'll be able to learn at the deeper level. In other words, it's almost like this. If you learn the Torah once and you don't learn a second time, it's like planting without reaping. Now, some people say, well, Rabbi, I read this Torah portion last year, right? There's the old joke of the kid in Hebrew school. The rabbi comes and teaches the story of Joseph and his brothers and how Joseph came by his brothers and they took him and threw him in the pit and then sold him. And the little girl in the class was crying, terrible, how could this happen to Joseph? And he had to calm her down and tell her everything. And it came the next year again, and the teacher's very, very scared what's going to happen. Is the girl going to, get all crying again? He had tissues prepared and a grief counselor ready. And he read the story. And not only the girl wasn't crying, she was almost like snickering. And he says, what's going on? But last year you were crying, what happened? He says, listen, last year already he got sold into slavery. He should have learned by now. He should have learned his lesson, never go to his brothers to begin with. He's being a fool. So again, that brings up the point that unfortunately you can read the Torah and read the same stories again, but that's not how we do it. You read it, you plant seeds, and that allows you the next year to learn even deeper. Not just different, but you, so to speak, peel a layer over what you've learned last time. That's actually, it says the word chazak is an acronym for the words in Hebrew, charisha zriya katsira, which means plowing, planting, and cutting. So when we say chazak, chazak, we're saying be strong, you've planted. Now continue studying and reap the benefits of what you studied. Another interesting thing just to point out, since we end the Torah over here, the last letter in the Torah is the letter Lamed. And the first letter in the Torah is the letter Bet. So when we finish reading the Torah, we finish reading the letter Lamed. And when we start reading the letter Bet. And that means Lev, which means heart. And so the secret to Jewish survival is the Torah. The Torah is our heart. It is our life force. It's what beats deep inside of us. It's in our life veins, and that's what keeps us going. And so when we finish the Torah and Simchat Torah and you come for all the celebrations, think about how you can continue that study. One great way of doing it, there's a study cycle, which is every single day you study one section of the Torah. In other words, on Sunday you read the first reading. The Torah, each Torah portion is split up into 7 readings. So on Sunday you read the first reading. Monday, read the second reading. And you can sign up for the daily study with Chabad.org, or you can buy a Chumash online and just learn it yourself. I personally, every couple of years, switch out the different Chumashim that I use. It's a great way to study the Torah at deeper dimensions. Every year it surprises me how much more there is to study. If you come to synagogue every Shabbat, you wonder what else can the rabbi talk about? Hasn't he covered all the topics? But there's always more to delve into. And sometimes it's even the same concept, but you get a deeper nuance and a deeper understanding of it. Or you have changed as a person, hopefully, and it has a different relevance to you now than it did years ago. And so the study of the Torah never gets old, never gets boring. There's always more and more to find in there. As the holiday ends, we make Havdalah, and this will truly be the end of the holiday season. And many people have the custom at the end of the holiday, or especially after the Torah portion of Bereshit, to say the line of Yaakov halach l'darko, and Jacob embarked on his journey. That's a quote from the Torah when Jacob left his parents' house and went to Haran. He went to exile. And that's a symbolism of us. Over this holiday season, we're, so to speak, like merchants. We're gathering the merchandise. We're packing our suitcases. And now, once the holiday's over, we go on the trip. We go on the trip through the year. And we're going to unpack that inspiration that we've had throughout the year, and we're try to unpack it and help us uplift our lives. And we want to make sure that when it comes next year, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, we're not the same people again. There's something different about us. Something has changed about us. And many people have the custom at the end of the holiday to sing Jewish songs, help elevate their soul. It says that songs touch our soul. It says that songs is the pen of the soul. Words is intellect, but the way to get to your soul is with music. And actually, as I mentioned this a couple other times, is many people almost feel as the holiday is ending, oh, well, when is it over? When is it over? When is it over? But actually, in the mystical understanding, the end of the holiday is the deepest and most powerful spiritual part of the holiday. And so this year, as the holidays end, maybe take a moment, sing the Jewish songs that you know, or learn a few new songs that you didn't know, learn it now. Before the holiday, learn a couple songs and sit there and meditate and think about what do you have in your suitcase and what you're going to take with you for the rest of the holidays, for the rest of the year. And so with that, I wish you all a wonderful and happy Shemini Atzeret Simchat Torah. May you have a meaningful time, and may you take all the inspiration from this holiday season, put it in your suitcase, pack it up with you, and next year may we truly be different people, and may we all be in a different place in our holy city in Jerusalem with the coming of Mashiach. Thank you, and I will say